welcome to the Doc to Doc podcast. I'm Rob Hoyer, medical oncologist.
And my name is Abbas Shafi, gastroenterologist. This is a podcast about lifestyle medicine, disease prevention, and longevity.
This podcast is provided for informational purposes only. It is not medical advice. Please consult your physician for personalized therapy and advice.
Our goal is to enable individuals to become CEO of their health by managing their diet, exercise, sleep, and stress to preventing common disease.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Doc episode 3. We're very excited today to talk to you about probiotics and all the mechanisms and dive into the history of probiotics, and also talk about some of the what's hype and what's not hype, and how there is a very emerging science of probiotics that's really important for human health. But we'll also talk about pitfalls that you can avoid, and hopefully we'll be able to help save you some money in the process of all that. So we'll get started here, and I'm just going to give a brief intro and then let my colleague, Dr. Abbas Shafi, talk about some of the history of probiotics. So very, very broad overview of probiotics. What are these? What are probiotics? What is the microbiome? You hear that term a lot. So basically, the human microbiome, or the microbiota, same thing. There are over 39 trillion organisms that inhabit our gastrointestinal tract, or our gut. Those consist of bacteria, fungi, parasites, viruses. There's also amoebae type organisms as well that inhabit our gut. And there's actually more microbes than human cells in the body. There's thousands, about 10,000 different species to be exact, and each of us have about 300 to 1,000 species in the gut. And also the gut is a huge part of our immune system. So about 70% of the immune system in our bodies actually resides in the gut. So a lot of the cells in our immune system are in the gut and ready to fight any invading organisms that come in. So I'm going to let Abbas talk about the history and the very, very interesting historical references of the human microbiome. And Abbas, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you. The interest in modifying gut flora by consuming food as well as microbes that may improve overall health as well as the treatment of the disease like diarrhea or dysentery has been around since the beginning of the civilization of humans and mankind. Whether this is done by fermenting food such as milk to yogurt, or fermenting vegetables as well as other food has been around in different parts of the world as early as history of human living in caves by fermenting and preserving their food for the winter. In historical purpose, the documentation from China as well as Japan, Korea, India, Middle East, and Europe is fascinating about how they try to ferment food as well as treatment of certain diseases, particularly with diarrhea. The early documentation that we can see is in China during Ming Dynasty as considered as a yellow soup, which a form of fecal transplant from a healthy individual to an ill patient with diarrhea, and preventing from dehydration and death, and has been well documented. However, since 1900s, by Pasteur in France and the germ theory, this has become more of a scientific approach to this. When in Europe, they were studying the different culture. They noted the certain villages in Hungary that they live for a long time, and they thought this was due to eating fermented yogurt as a part of their daily diet. Uh, this has not become mainstream until around 2013, when um, the probiotics as well as gut flora became more uh, common in West, and particularly for treatment of chronic diarrhea like C. diff. Um, so since then, there has been many um, theories, many mechanisms of action to prove how this um, um, healthy food as well as this pre or probiotic that helps the human condition as well as preventive the disease, and has become a huge market. Um, when you look at again back to history, whether from Africa, that for treatment of severe diarrhea used small amounts of um, camel manure, or today's fecal transplant that we use from a healthy individual to people with chronic disease. This has been very, very interesting. But through the world, whether from Tibet or from fermenting yak milk, or Korea from kimchi, uh, Japanese like miso soup, um, or kombucha, fermented tea, pickling in Middle East and Europe, as well as yogurt from India all the way to um, Europe has been used. The mechanism of action, how the probiotics works, is not yet completely understood, but several mechanisms has been postulated. One, the probiotic may affect on mu opioid and cannabinoid receptors, then consequently cause influence the visceral sensitivity and decrease the pain, which this has been used for people with irritable bowel syndrome. The other postulate is inflammation by suppressing the inflammatory cytokinase, and then by stimulating the protective cytokinase, which is mostly the model that used for inflammatory bowel disease, that may help. Um, the other mechanism may be helpful is by promoting intestinal integrity, as well as increase the integrity of the epithelium and tight junction, and causes a barrier function and biofilaments on the gut, and preventing from pathogen to invade the intestinal wall, and causing disease, and creating inflammation. So this is a sort of brief synopsis through the history as well as possible mechanism, and I'll let Rob have some comments.
Thank you, Abbas. That was fascinating, and there's it's such a I love the historical connection, and we've had patients in the hospital that have required stool transplants, which is as Abbas mentioned, a treatment for Clostridium difficile diarrhea in resistant cases. That's basically overgrowth of this we call C. diff in the large intestine, and sometimes that's the only way to treat it. So it's that's most of the time treated with certain antibiotics, but rarely, occasionally, can be treated with with a stool transplant, as Abbas mentioned. So I think next it's important to to mention this concept of the prebiotic, and basically that what that is the food for these organisms that constitute the microbiome. So when we talk about prebiotics, we're talking about basically carbohydrates that include fiber, which is soluble and insoluble fiber. And we're going to have a whole episode on fiber coming up here in a very soon. So stay tuned for that. And there's actually thousands of different types of fiber, so it's a huge topic. And fiber, what's also known as dietary starch and sugar, can also serve as the food for these organisms. So the fiber is a prebiotic, and then you have the probiotics, which are the organisms, and that makes these organisms, when they grow, produce what's called postbiotics, and those are short chain fatty acids, and that's basically what comes out of our intestine and is used by our body for fuel. And so the environment of the colon, it's acidic because these fatty acids have a low pH, and so the ideal colon microenvironment is a low pH, low oxygen containing gut. When the when the small intestine has a higher oxygen, or has a higher pH, that will actually drive the production of different types of organisms, and change the microbiome. If the gut's treated with antibiotics, for example, if you take antibiotics, that will change the organisms in the colon. And what we see is a change from what's called an obligate anaerobe to a facultative anaerobe. And what that means is basically the obligate anaerobes have to be in a low oxygen environment, versus these facultative anaerobes that can go they can be in a low oxygen or in a higher oxygen environment. They can actually adapt, and we see a lot of diseases associated with these facultative anaerobes, and that includes it's interesting. A gut that's been treated with antibiotics actually, in some respects, is very similar from a microbiology standpoint to a gut that has been exposed to a high fat diet. So high fat diet and antibiotics treated actually have some similarities. It's quite interesting. So we thought it would be interesting to talk a little bit about some of the diseases that are linked to the microbiome, and specifically we'll use a term called dysbiosis. And what that means is a change in the microbiome to more of this facultative anaerobe that we just talked about. We have both gastrointestinal or GI versus the non-GI diseases. And I'll let Abbas talk about some of the GI conditions that are linked to dysbiosis.
Yes, there has been using probiotic for many variety of disease, but in general, in most cases, in healthy individual, that they are the biggest consumer of the probiotic, they really do not need any of this supplement. There has been many diseases in the GI tract that has been investigated to see whether there's any benefit from this commercially um, available probiotics. Um, I'll go through some of the disease and I'll see what are the recommendation. The most study has been done probably called in pouchitis, which is um, inflammation of the pouch that is surgically created from people with um, inflammatory bowel disease like ulcerative colitis, which they had to remove the colon, or people with familial polyposis that the colon has been removed and they're creating a pouch from small intestine, which the stool can cause inflammation and cause chronic diarrhea. So the probiotic has shown in multiple studies that decrease this recurrent disease. And when you use a probiotic, we should we'll go through that later on in the podcast, about choose the one that has been proven uh, with viability, as well as proven by study that help. In this disease, they use VSL number 3, and they use that for 12 months. Um, Other diseases such as infectious diarrhea, um, this has been recommended to use twice a day for 5 days, um, and mostly they use lactobacillus. In historical point, people has been using sour milk or yogurt for diarrhea for many years or a decade in other countries. Um, Clostridium difficile or C. diff diarrhea. Um, this probiotic has been used substantially. However, um, the study shows that if you start in 48 hours of using antibiotic, and you only need use this 7 days afterwards, and you can use many different preparation for this. So this may be beneficial. Um, some people they use this for long time, but really, I have not come across any study that shows that beyond 7 days after antibiotic would be any beneficial. Um, there is a infection in the stomach called H. pylori infection, which treated with multiple antibiotics. And one of the side effects of that, people are creating C. diff as well, like diarrhea. In this showed possibility using probiotic twice a day for 7 days and continue 7 days after the complete treatment may be beneficial. Um, Constipation. The constipation is you have to use a selective probiotics. Uh, the trial are for 4 weeks or 8 weeks, so you do not need beyond that for a long time. If they have not worked in a month, probably they're not helpful. Irritable bowel syndrome. The people take this for years for this treatment, but many studies shows beyond 4 weeks is unnecessary. You can trial for 4 weeks to see if that's helpful or not. So for other diseases like hepatic encephalopathy and Crohn's disease, it is not recommended. Um, However, for ulcerative colitis, in some studies they showed maybe some benefit to this. So for any other disease, and healthy individual with intact gut, a balanced, proper diet with adequate fiber as well as fermented food is the recommended uh, regime to do. Then taking this probiotic, which can be very expensive, and some of them they are not effective at all.
That, that's really fascinating, the array of the diseases that can be potentially treated with a probiotic therapy. I was not aware of the H. pylori data, so that's really interesting. I may consider that in my patients. There's also a variety of non GI diseases. These have not been as well researched as what Abbas just mentioned. And I also want to add that in addition to the one addition as well as and as I'm an oncologist, we'll have to talk about colon and rectal cancer. This has not been proven, but there are some very interesting theories linking the higher risk of colon and rectal cancer in younger individuals to potential changes in the microbiome. And that's been research that's emerging over the last couple of years, and we talked about that in episode 1. So you can feel free to listen to that episode if you're interested hearing about the increasing incidence of colon and rectal cancer and some potential theories about why that might be the case. Some of the non-GI diseases, probably one of the biggest is metabolic syndrome. So that's a syndrome of central obesity, so weight gain in the in the belly or abdominal area, and that's also linked to high cholesterol and insulin resistance, which then leads to diabetes. And so there are some very interesting potential mechanisms there about how um, the eating high carb, high sugar, specifically high processed sugar diet, may be associated with the microbiome in several ways. So it's quite interesting. Also, there's links to a variety of other diseases, including the cancer of the esophagus, maybe also linked to the microbiome. Other diseases, including Alzheimer's, depression, also have been linked to dysbiosis. So there's a variety of uh, of of diseases. If you look at some of the papers, you can rapidly see that there's a host of different diseases, including autoimmune diseases. Abbas mentioned ulcerative colitis and Crohn's, which are autoimmune diseases of the gut, but also other diseases like rheumatoid arthritis, lupus. These diseases may also be associated with dysbiosis. So there's a whole host of things. There's several prominent physicians and researchers have even stated that the microbiome may be the source of most or all human diseases. So it's actually a very interesting, and I think we need more data to really before we make bold statements like that. But this is quite an important system that we're talking about, and there's a lot of associations with multiple diseases. I thought we could talk a little bit about some of the ways in which we can help our microbiome to be diverse. So the idea is to have a wide array of different organisms in the gut, and so you want to eat the idea is to eat a variety of foods that are specifically plant-based foods are going to be the best to support the microbiome for two reasons. The first is the plants have fiber. So to get fiber, you have to eat plants. There's no way around that. Specifically, though, that's a whole food plant diet. So eating processed plants is going a lot of the fiber is going to be removed with the processing, and so eating you can cook them, but fruits and vegetables that are not processed is key. Because the processing will destroy a lot of the fiber or modify it so much that it's no longer helpful. The second thing is that these plants also have their own microbiome. So plants have a microbiome too, both inside and on the surface of the plant. Say, for example, an apple has a whole microbiome on it, and that for my patients, when I recommend organic food, yes, there's a rationale to try to avoid the pesticides and other things that are sprayed on the soil and the plants. Totally makes sense, but a huge reason for organic food is also to try to have a more diverse microbiome. So the plant that is not sprayed with pesticides and other insecticides has to have its own defense mechanisms. It's going to be a stronger plant, but also it has a more diverse ecology because it's in soil that has not been treated heavily with pesticides and insecticides, other fertilizers and chemicals. And so that apple that's organic is likely going to have a better, more diverse microbiome. And when you eat the apple, that becomes part of your microbiome, and that's the whole concept of how important food is in this whole process. So, and variety of plant-based foods, ideally 30 to 35 different plant-based foods per week is ideal. And also, as Abbas mentioned, fermented foods are absolutely crucial. So find your fermented food of choice. Abbas listed a whole series of them. And just find the one you like. If you don't like the other ones, that's fine. Find one that you like and start incorporating it into the diet. Yogurt is a great one that's widely available. There's a whole host of others that are available, and we've started eating kimchi in our diet, and it's actually really good. It just tastes really good, and it can be used on a variety of foods. So that's something that's been very helpful to explore some of these different foods across cultures. And I thought maybe Abbas, if you wanted to comment a little bit on the on supplements, specifically probiotic supplements and prebiotic supplements, and you talked a little bit about earlier, but if someone is going to consider a prebiotic or postbiotic supplement, what can they use? How long should they use it for?
In my opinion, we see the majority of this interest in gut flora as well as the disease that related to guts has been since 1950s from industrialization of the food, particularly sodas, this substitute sugar, as well as of course overuse of the antibiotics. In general, if you're a healthy individual, so you mean you have an intact gut, I think there's nothing better than adequate hydration and having a good plant base, or at least 80% of your diet should be plant based. If you use those food and a balance, and they're very tasty food, does not mean have to have, eat broccoli every day, but there's many good fermented food. You don't have to always have kimchi, but there's many other type of foods, as well as yogurt. You can, when you buying particularly yogurt, be cautious that because of over sterilization of the yogurt in the market, sometimes these yogurts are not as um, much probiotic as what you think. So if you can learn how to make your own yogurt, is the best way to do. But however, the more basic the culture, the yogurt it is, the more culture it has. So the more, if they put too much fruits and other type of flavoring there, then consequently that can cause other fungi to grow. So then consequently they or cleanse that, and then it kills the defeat the purpose. So try to use a plain yogurt or make your own yogurt. So that's to be the best thing. And then as Rob mentioned, have the 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 basic balance with the seasonal as well as food. So that's what mostly you need. You don't need really no supplement. However, if you decided to that you need probiotic, and you need, I believe, consult your physician, and and if you tried it, for example, for irritable bowel syndrome, do not take it more than 4 weeks. And when you choose that, there's a few things that you need to know, whether this is number one proven, or this is just marketing. So make sure that type of the product you take is there. The second thing, make sure is the half shelf on it is not too old. So these things will degrade as the time goes on. So then you want to make sure that this, beside a study proven, good quality one, as well as that each of the probiotic, they have contained many different variety of the bacteria. So you need to search to see which one is suitable for you. But if you have an intact gut, I would not try more than 4 weeks treatment. This is about a $52 billion industry, and because does not have any significant side effect, this has becomes more of a financial gain, I believe, to supplement from baby food to for the dogs, for the many other things today. You see that has become a big advertisement. So, but if you have an intact gut per se, you do not need. But if you have any constipation, IBS, those you can try VSL or line or other type of probiotic that has proven that they're good, but I would not take them for a long time.
Do you have a preference, Abbas, of for the refrigerated versus the non-refrigerated probiotics?
That has been debated that if there's refrigerated, again, you have to use it more faster than that. The problem is if they're refrigerated and use it on a timely fashion, that probably they have more active bacteria. But if you leave it there for too long, that may degrade faster. So as is, initially I was very um, uh, interested in this commercial probiotic that can save, but as the time has gone on and the more you see the long time or studies, then the less reliable they come. And again, they're not substitute for a good healthy diet. But however, those diseases that mentioned like pouchitis, we use VSL. Sometimes we use align other bacteria. So it's depend when you buy it, don't buy a whole bulk of this. So buy small and make sure it's fresh and make sure they use it for the amount that you use. I would not keep it more than a month or so in refrigerator or non-refrigerator to use it. So uh, so there is so many. If you go to any health food store or if you go to any grocery, there's so many probiotics that even as a physician, that looks very confusing. So if you chose to do, you need to diligent work to see whether those are the one that suit for you. And I would not take it for a long time.
So to we'll sum up a little bit here and we'll do some take-home points. So the microbiome is important. It's important to have a diverse microbiome, so different with different organisms, and the idea is to have an acidic environment in the gut to try to promote health. And the best way to have that diverse microbiome is to eat a variety of plant-based foods, preferably organic, and don't forget about the fermented foods. And maybe we can list off a couple here that you can either literally these are super simple to make at home if you want. There's a very easy steps on YouTube to make whether it's be yogurt, sauerkraut, you can miso. There's a variety of different options there. Uh, Huge variety of different fermented foods. And Abbas, do you have any other foods that you like for your fermented part of
Uh,
your diet?
of course, I am originally from Iran, and the yogurt is our biggest probiotic we use on daily, and we make yogurt at home. That's I think is huge. Um, Other type of things, kombucha. It's small amount. You don't have to use kombucha a lot, but kombucha is another good source. Even certain vinegar, balsamic vinegar, or apple cider vinegar. Those are also um, in some cultures they use it as a probiotic. Any pickling of the foods, whether it's kimchi, whether it's um, other fermented, we use something in the called turshi, which is many vegetable they ferment in vinegar or the winter times or things. And so as a condiment next to your food, these are all in the long term will help that. The key things avoiding diet soda and processed food because that's what um, disturb your probiotic your gut flora more than using any probiotic. So but culture you looked almost every ancient culture has a form of that. This is as we mentioned miso soup, kimchi, kombucha, balsamic vinegar, yogurt. In ancient Egypt, they use mida as which is fermented um, grains with honey and to develop a drink like beer. So all of those things has been as sort of culturally used as a form of probiotics.
So this leads into our next episode, which is on fiber. So yes, we're going to talk about fiber for about 30 minutes coming up here, and the fiber is actually fascinating. There's a lot to it, and uh, I'm not sure if we can even cover everything in 30 minutes, but we'll do our best, and we'll talk about how Americans eat about 10 to 15 grams of fiber a day, and really we should be all be double or triple that. So probably at least 30 grams is optimal, even higher, actually, maybe better. So we'll talk about that and ways you can increase fiber in your diet, and how to start um, promoting a healthy gut. So, um, Abbas, anything else to add?
No, in conclusion, that again, when you're choosing a probiotic, make sure there's number one, the high content of the good bacteria that you're looking for. Make sure you do have some prebiotics in vegetable and fruit that cause further help to for those to grow, and make sure there's a clinically has been studied and has proven that is beneficial. But majority over the counter, unfortunately, they're just sold as marketing. So be wise on choosing your probiotic and uh, live a healthy life.
Thanks, everyone. See you soon.